Alright, hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to the Minecraft Trains project. I'm at 4-1 spawn and I've been thinking about redstone. But I'm not gonna do that right now because right now we're gonna finish testing the what am I doing? Finish testing the regional loop. I'm gonna go this is 4-1, right? Hold on, where am I? Where is the spawn point? This is 4-1. We're gonna go from 4-1, 4-1, 3-1, 2-1, 1-1, 5-1, 4-1. And if all of that goes well, then everything is gonna be great. Alright, so I'm gonna take this, switch this to 3-1. 3-1, great. And let's go. So yesterday, we found out, well, we didn't really find out, but we really thoroughly explored the lag possibly caused by pistons, or maybe exacerbated by the pistons. So after traveling long distances, the game starts to lag, and the lag is particularly noticeable with pistons. So between the last video and this one, I've been experimenting and trying to design components for this train network that don't use pistons. Right, so especially like this stuff. These are persisters that hold the signal as the train goes past. These things, like, there's like 20 pistons in each one, as you can see. And I have been successful in designing persisters without pistons. And not only that, it turns out to be much simpler. So it turns out there's a much easier and simpler and efficient way to do all this circuitry. But I'm not gonna do that today. Maybe at the end of the day if we have time. So today I'm just gonna test the regional loop. I'm gonna test the system as it is, make sure everything works. And then next week, hey Hal, I'm just saying, next week we will start rewiring the whole thing. Hi Harbour. I was saying that I have managed to design circuits that don't need the pistons. Like the signals, the junctions. I managed a way to figure out a way to hold the signals without the pistons. So after making sure that this all works, and then updating the save file, I'm just gonna rewire everything. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna rebuild the whole thing, Harbour. It's actually really simple too. I mean, it took me a while to figure out, but like but once I figured it out, it turns out it's actually quite simple. Maybe at the end of today, if we manage to get that far, I'll show you what I figured out during the week. Basically, these persisters, you just loop the wire back. You just loop it back to hold the signal, right? So you know how the signal goes for 15 blocks, and then the 5 blocks at the end determines what the signal is. You take that, and then in 15 blocks, you put it back into the same one, and the loop causes the game to just causes the signal to just be stuck on that, and that remembers the signal, and then to reset it, you just cut the loop. So with the power of recursion, with the power of endless loops, you can do all of this without pistons. It's one of these things that only makes sense in Minecraft and would not make sense in the real world. Because obviously in the real world, if you take a circuit and you loop it back on itself, it just short circuits, right? It just blows up. Anyway, for now, let's test the regional loop. Finish testing the regional loop. So anyway, that's me. How are you, Hava? Good. Great. Rewiring should be relatively easy. I mean, it's relative, but it should be easier than the first wiring, just because it's a simpler design. It's still gonna take a long time though, several months maybe. It's difficult to, like in hindsight, it's difficult to believe that I've been building this thing for years and I didn't figure that out until now. How is this? Presumably it'll look neater too. Yeah. I haven't actually confirmed it, but I suspect I can actually fit all the circuitry just underneath the trackway. So I wouldn't need these things sticking out the side anymore. I have to stagger it. I have to stagger the persisters so that to make them fit. But I think I can actually stagger them. Because the new design is actually really just much simpler. It's actually really basic and simple once you see it. It's kind of crazy. It's just like a line of redstone in a loop and that's it. It just loops back and that's it. That's the whole thing! Unbelievable how simple it is. I guess I'll also take the opportunity to like change some of the tracks. Like I've been complaining about the regional loop between loop 3 and loop 4. I think no, that's not it. Between loop 2 and loop 3. I think I'll just like rebuild that one, or rebuild the parts that I don't really like. And the underwater tunnel, if you remember that one, I guess I'll like move the track down 1 block or 2 blocks, because I won't need as much space underneath for the circuitry. And I would like more headroom in the tunnel, because it's kind of weird at the moment. It's kind of like too low at the moment. It feels too low, not that it is too low. It feels a little low and it feels like you kind of squished into the ceiling. However, says, and replace the redstone torches with the redstone blocks in loop 2. Yes, I'll probably do that too. And I guess I'll clean up the loop 2 junctions. Loop 2 junctions are they're a bit hacked in, like they didn't work before. And then I like hacked a solution into it. I guess I'll just like redo those. We are rebuilding everything! Rebuilding everything! Right, where am I going? Still gonna 3-1, right? Yeah. And I guess the moral of the story is you never really just do something and it's finished. You kind of keep improving it. However, says why not start now? Is there any point in testing what you're doing now if you're going to rebuild the important bits? Well, partly I just want to finish what I started. And also I want to like, because I'm going to make sure this works and then save this as it is before I just cut it, just dig up everything and rebuild everything. So after I test this and make sure everything works, I'm just gonna like keep this as a save. I'm gonna update the link in the YouTube descriptions, and then I'll start. So basically, I'm just gonna finish this first, and then keep this as a like a snapshot. I guess in the long run, I should just like rewire everything. But there's always a chance that the rewiring doesn't work or something. I dig everything up and then I break everything. And then I regret it. So I'm gonna like keep this in stages, make a snapshot. However, I've often wondered about that thing about improving as you go with regard to writing. It seems worthwhile to start the novel in the middle and loop back to the start when you're finished, so the worst written stuff isn't at the start, which would lose readers. I think video games are made like that. I'm not sure about novels. I guess you can do that with novels too. But I get the impression that novels, you just like write it twice or 3 times. I don't know anyone. Well, maybe some people do. I don't actually think writers just write once. I think they like write it and then rewrite it. Just the whole thing. But yeah, I agree, Hava. Hava says I guess that's what the editing part is for, as well as the grammar edit. I mean, I mean, not that I'm an experienced writer or anything, but if I had to give advice, I would say just quickly write the whole thing once, and then write the whole thing again. Especially like, I mean, if it's a short book, maybe not so much. But if it's like a long, complicated, convoluted story or it's like plot twist or whatever, like if it's a tricky thing, just do it twice, or expect to do it twice. If it turns out you only need to do it once, hey, that's great. But plan to do it twice at least. I do know that with video games, they would like make one part of the game and finish the whole, just that part. It's called a vertical slice, right? So from everything from concept design all the way down to final polishing. They'll do that, and it'll be like one level or one area of the game. And when that works, then they will take that process and they'll just repeat it for all the other parts of the game. So they do like one thing, one small part of it, to work out the process. And to like nail down the tone, the style, and all that. And in the end, they might not actually use that vertical slice. Like that part might not even actually be in the final game. Or sometimes when they put it in the final game, you can kind of tell. I mean, you can still kind of tell that that's the prototype because it's a little bit different. I think in Skyrim you can tell that, like, you can tell which dungeon. I think the start of the game in Skyrim, the region around Riverwood and Bleak Falls Barrow, I think that's the prototype. Because like Bleak Falls Barrow is a little bit different from all the other dungeons. It's a little bit more cinematic, a little bit more scripted. Whereas the other dungeons are you kind of get a feeling that they have like a streamlined process. And then the opposite side of that is, in some other games you can tell which parts they ran out of time on. I think like in Half-Life 2 you can tell that they didn't end where they thought they would end. And then in BioShock you can tell that the final cutscene is just incomplete. I just finished Borderlands 3 and the final boss fight was unsatisfying. It's kind of strange. Usually, like, you know, big story-based shooters, the final boss would be like this big finale, right? But the final boss in Borderlands 3, the boss fight was very similar to the other boss fights. It's almost like they made the final boss as the prototype, and then they designed the other boss fights afterwards. And they didn't go back to make sure the final boss actually was something special. I don't know what happened there, but the final boss fight was not satisfying. How is this better than Half-Life Borderlands 2? Question mark. The game as a whole, like in terms of just like design decisions, I think it's an incremental improvement in terms of general gameplay things. Like all the little bits that didn't feel right in Borderlands 2, they fixed in Borderlands 3. And the game is it's a great game. I mean, I don't have any complaints about it except for the final boss fight. The final boss fight, I would have been happier if it was more dramatic, I guess. More dramatic, more cinematic. Because in the other Borderlands games, the final boss fight was actually quite unique. Whereas in Borderlands 3, the final boss fight was not unique at all. It was just another boss fight. It wasn't any different from the other boss fights. Aside from that, yeah, Borderlands 3 is just I would say it's an incremental improvement on Borderlands 2. Nothing revolutionary, but a lot of improvements. Although the nature of Borderlands games is that they do take a while to finish making the games. Like the DLCs are significant, right? They're not just more of the same. The DLCs will add new mechanics, and they continually like patching and tweaking it over time. So like at this stage of the game, I would say of course Borderlands 2 has more content because, you know, the DLCs have not been finished yet. I suspect by the time they're done with all the DLC and things, that Borderlands 3 will be just the better game overall. this bit is what I want to change. I want to lower the tunnel there, and then lower this diagonal bit as well. The tunnel should be at the base of the mountain, which is down there. You can kind of just see it over the edge. And this should be lower down. And this probably shouldn't should probably go diagonal sooner. Up diagonal and then cut through. Anyway. Things to do in the future. Wait a minute. I went from 4-1 to this is 3-1? I hope this is 3-1.